There's a good reason why EA and BioWare haven't been touting how many copies of Mass Effect Andromeda they sold. It's a well-known fact by now that Mass Effect Andromeda woefully undersold from expectation, but I didn't realize just how much until I saw some data provided by the NPD Group. For those who don't know, the NPD Group is a well-known company who release video game, software, and hardware sales figures each month. Not only that, they have a section detailing the best-selling games across all platforms in any given year. According to website IGN, the data for 2017 looks something like this so far. As you can see here, Mass Effect Andromeda ranks 5th among games sold in 2017. Something to keep in mind is that this data is based on dollar amounts rather than total units sold. But still, this should give you a pretty good idea on how each game performed. Now, let me give you some context for these sales figures. Last we heard, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, which ranks 6th in the NPD Group's data, sold around 3.5 million units by March 31st, 2017. Horizon Zero Dawn, which placed 4th, sold around 2.6 million units by March 16th, 2017, 2 weeks after launch. I would say that by now the game has easily reached 3+ million units sold. Finally, for Zelda Breath of the Wild, which placed in 3rd, we know that the game sold a combined total of around 2.76 million units by March 31st, 2017. By now, May 2017, I expect this game to have surpassed 3 million units sold, especially with the insane attach rate of this game to Nintendo Switch units, which are selling like hotcakes, by the way. Once again, I'd like to remind you that the NPD Group's ranking is based on dollar amounts rather than total units sold. So with something like Zelda Breath of the Wild, which hasn't been sold at a discount yet and will probably never go on sale because Nintendo games never go on sale, Nintendo probably extracted every single drop of revenue from each Zelda Breath of the Wild unit sold. Hence why it might be higher on the list than something like Resident Evil 7 despite having sold a little less. So if we extrapolate this data, we know that all of the games sandwiching Mass Effect Andromeda in terms of sales figures have sold somewhere between 3 million to 3.5 million units. That probably means that Mass Effect Andromeda sold similar figures. Let's be optimistic and assume that Mass Effect Andromeda sold around 3.5 million units. On a surface level, these are pretty decent looking figures, but do keep in mind that how successfully a game sells isn't about raw numbers, but about how much money went into a game and how much they were expecting to get back. It's about sales expectations, and on that front, Andromeda failed miserably. I would like to take you all the way back to January 31st, 2017, 2 months before Mass Effect Andromeda launched. On this date, EA hosted their Q3 financial briefing, and among the topics that they discussed were sales expectations for Mass Effect Andromeda. Their estimation back then was that Mass Effect Andromeda would ship 3 million units in the first week and then go to sell 6 to 9 million units in its lifetime. Fast forward to 2 months after the game's March 21st, 2017 launch, and sales have only barely surpassed their first week goal. Now, if you're thinking that sales might pick up in the coming weeks or months or years, think again. If you isolate the NPD Group's data to just April 2017 video game sales, you will see that Andromeda's sales quickly dropped off to 7th place, whereas games like Zelda Breath of the Wild have retained strong sales. By May and June, I expect Andromeda to sink lower and lower until it's nowhere on this list. Assuming that this trend continues, I would wager that Mass Effect Andromeda will only sell around 4 million units in its lifetime, and even that, I think, is optimistic. Comparatively, that is less than Mass Effect 2's 4.8 million units sold and Mass Effect 3's 6 million units sold. So yes, Mass Effect Andromeda sold by the millions, but it gained nowhere near the attraction or sold nowhere near the amount of copies that EA was expecting, with a deficit of 2 to 5 million units in lifetime sales. That is a huge blow, and it is no wonder that EA has put Mass Effect in hiatus despite the fact that Andromeda was supposed to be a soft reboot for the series and continue on with sequels and whatnot. And the damage was extensive enough for EA and BioWare to decide to downscale Mass Effect Andromeda's development studio, BioWare Montreal, and essentially scatter the staff to other EA projects like Star Wars Battlefront 2 and the new BioWare IP that BioWare Edmonton is working on. There's probably still a team in BioWare Montreal that is dedicated to fixing the game's bugs and animation woes, but at this point, even a DLC for Andromeda sounds like a distant proposition. It's a damn shame, but at the same time, EA and BioWare need this reality check, and this slap to the face might just be enough to convince them to get their heads out of their collective asses. They expected the Mass Effect name to be able to carry Andromeda's sales rather than the quality of the game, hence why they were fine shipping Andromeda in the state that it launched. And this misguided assumption cost them dearly. Hey, you reap what you sow. So yeah, there you go, folks. Long story short, Mass Effect Andromeda sold millions, but also missed the mark by millions. Hardly a success story. I hope this video was helpful for those who are curious about Mass Effect Andromeda's sales figures, which is data that EA and BioWare have remained close-lipped about. And if you enjoy my content, I hope you'll consider supporting me on Patreon so that we can sustain this channel without the need of third-party sponsorship. And to be further updated on all things video game news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.